the Kashmiri language, Pahalgam means Valley of Shepherds. For centuries, it has been a place of quiet tranquility, a sanctuary nestled in the Himalayas. More recently, it became a different kind of sanctuary, a haven for tourists seeking respite, a place showcased as a symbol of peace in a region long acquainted with conflict. But on April 22, 2025, that peace was deliberately and brutally shattered. In the idyllic Bazaran Meadows, also known as Mini Switzerland, a group of tourists were about to become the targets of a meticulously planned act of terror, an act that would not only leave dozens dead, but would also push two nuclear-armed nations to the brink. This is the story of the Pahalgam attack and the complex, bloody chain of events it set in motion. Tourism in Jammu and Kashmir is more than just an industry. It's a barometer of normalcy, contributing around 7% to the region's GDP. The sight of bustling hotels and crowded attractions has long been used as an indicator of stability. After years of turmoil, the early 2020s saw an unprecedented boom. In 2024 alone, over 3.5 million tourists visited the Kashmir Valley, a record high. The government promoted this influx as a sign of success, a shift from a terrorist hotspot to a tourist hotspot. Pahalgam, a resort town in the Anantnag district, was a crown jewel of this revival. Located about 50 kilometers from the main city of Srinagar, its accessibility and famed beauty made it a prime destination. The Bazaran Valley, a stunning meadow surrounded by dense pine forests, is one of its most popular spots, reachable only by a short trek or a pony ride. It was considered safe, a place where the troubles of the world felt distant. Among the visitors in April 2025 was a diverse cross-section of India, a Navy officer from Haryana on his honeymoon, a retired banker from Andhra Pradesh vacationing with his wife. They, like thousands of others, had come to witness the paradise they had heard of, unaware that they were walking into a carefully selected killing field. At approximately 2:45 in the afternoon, as the meadow bustled with activity, a group of 5 men emerged from the tree line. They were dressed in military-style camouflage and armed with modern assault rifles, M4 carbines and AK-47s. One wore a helmet mounted with a camera, a chilling indication that they intended to document their actions. They didn't fire immediately. First, they spread out, taking positions to cut off escape routes. Then, the chaos began. The attackers opened fire on the crowds of unsuspecting tourists. Panic erupted. People ran, seeking cover behind trees, tents, and the very ponies that had brought them there. The attack was inadvertently filmed by a tourist from Ahmedabad, who was on a zip line at that moment, his camera capturing the pandemonium below. But this was not an indiscriminate massacre. It was a targeted slaughter. Survivors reported that the gunmen began to round people up. They separated the men from the women and children. Then came the terrifying question, what is your religion? Those who identified as Hindu were singled out. Some were forced to try and recite the Kalima, the Islamic declaration of faith. Those who could not were shot at close range. Some men were forced to remove their trousers to check for a lack of circumcision before being executed. The militants reportedly told some of the women they were being spared so they could narrate the horror to India's Prime Minister. In the end, 26 civilians were dead. They were mostly Hindu tourists from across India, but the victims also included a Christian tourist and a local Muslim poniwala, Said Ali Shah, who was killed attempting to snatch a rifle from one of the attackers. Over a dozen more were wounded. It was the deadliest attack on civilians in India since the 2008 Mumbai attacks. As India reeled in shock and grief, a message appeared on the encrypted messaging app, Telegram. A little-known group called the Resistance Front, or TRF, claimed responsibility. The message stated that the attack was in opposition to non-local settlement in the region, a reference to demographic changes following the 2019 abrogation of Article 370, which had granted Kashmir special status. TRF first appeared in 2019, though it presents itself as an indigenous Kashmiri resistance movement with a secular name. Indian and U.S. authorities identify it as a front for Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Pakistan-based Islamist group behind the 2008 Mumbai attacks. The group was formed using cadres from Lashkar-e-Taiba and other militant outfits, specifically to create a veneer of a local uprising and evade international scrutiny of its parent organization. But then, something unusual happened. A few days after claiming the attack, TRF retracted its statement. It denied any involvement, claiming its Telegram channel had been hacked by Indian intelligence agencies in a coordinated cyber intrusion to malign the Kashmiri resistance. This denial was met with skepticism. Terror groups often deny responsibility for attacks that result in high civilian casualties and widespread public condemnation, especially from the local population. Regardless of the conflicting claims, Indian authorities were certain of the perpetrators' origins. The Jammu and Kashmir police released sketches of 3 of the terrorists, stating they were linked to Lashkar-Taiba, with at least 2 being foreign nationals. India's National Investigation Agency, the NIA, took over the case. A bounty of 2 million rupees was announced for information leading to their capture. Investigators began a massive questioning campaign, interviewing over 1,000 people, including victims' families, Pawnee operators, and local residents. The primary target of the manhunt was one man, the attack's suspected mastermind. A ghost known only by his alias Suleiman. The Pahalgam attack had crossed a red line. On May 7, 2025, 15 days after the massacre, the Indian military launched Operation Sindoor. The name, a reference to the vermilion mark worn by married Hindu women, was a clear and symbolic message. India carried out precision airstrikes against 9 alleged terror infrastructure sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, from where, it claimed, the attack had been planned. Pakistan denied the allegations and retaliated, leading to a 4-day military conflict that killed over 70 people on both sides before a fragile ceasefire was reached. India had sent its message to the world, but the men who had pulled the triggers in the meadow were still at large, hiding in the dense, mountainous terrain of Kashmir. While the world watched the borders, a quieter, more patient hunt was underway. It was codenamed Operation Mahadev. The goal was singular: find Suleiman and his team. Investigators learned that the mastermind was Suleiman Shah, also known as Hashim Musa, a former commando in the Pakistan Army's Elite Special Service Group, SSG, who had later joined Lashkar-e-Taiba. He was a high-value target, linked to at least 6 other attacks in the region. The security forces had intelligence that the attackers were using a satellite phone. For months, they patrolled the high-altitude forests, using sensors and technical surveillance, waiting for a signal. They knew the terrorists couldn't remain hidden forever. On June 22nd, they had a breakthrough, arresting 2 local men, Bashir and Parvez, for harboring the terrorists and providing them with food and shelter. The net was closing. On July 22nd, 3 months after the attack, they got the signal they were waiting for. Intelligence confirmed the presence of the terror cell in the Mulnar area of Harwan, in the upper reaches of the Dachigam National Park near Srinagar. On the morning of July 28th, the final phase of Operation Mahadev began. Security forces established a tight cordon around the forest hideout. The ensuing gunfight was fierce. By the end of the day, 3 terrorists had been neutralized. In the following days, the identities of the slain men were painstakingly confirmed. The 2 men arrested for providing shelter identified the bodies. Among their possessions were Pakistani voter ID cards and Pakistan-manufactured chocolates. But the most conclusive evidence came from the weapons. Forensic analysis confirmed that the cartridges found at the Pahalgam attack site were fired from the very same rifles recovered from the killed terrorists. The hunt was over. On July 29th, India's Home Minister Amit Shah formally announced in Parliament, "Those who killed our people in Bizaran Valley, all 3 terrorists have been killed." The 3 men were Suleiman Shah, the mastermind, a man known as Gibran, linked to another deadly attack, and a third identified as Hamza Afghani.
तीनों के नाम मैंने बताए हैं, सुलेमान उर्फे फैजल जट, अफगान और जिब्रान। मान्यवर, वो तो एक आशंका थी कि यही लोगों ने घटना की है, मगर मैं बाद में एनआईए की जांच पर आता हूं, एनआईए ने पहले से ही इनको जिन्होंने आसरा लिया था वो लोगों को गिरफ्तार कर रखा था, उनको खाना पहुंचाने वाले लोगों को अपने कब्जे में रखा था। तो जब आतंकवादियों के शव श्रीनगर आए, इनसे पहचान कराई गई, 4 लोगों ने पहचान लिया, यही 3 लोग थे जिन्होंने पहलगांव में आतंकी घटना को। मगर हमने इस पर भी भरोसा नहीं किया मान्यवर, कोई जल्दबाजी नहीं की। हमने जो आतंकी घटना स्थान से कारतूस मिले थे, वो कारतूस का एफएसएल रिपोर्ट पहले से करा कर रखा था और चंडीगढ़ सेंट्रल एफएसएल के अंदर बैलिस्टिक रिपोर्ट के आधार पर उनका रिपोर्ट तैयार था। जब ये कल आतंकवादी मारे गए, इनकी 3 राइफलें पकड़ी गई, एक M9 अमेरिकन राइफल थी और 2 AK-47 राइफल थी। जो कारतूस मिले थे वो भी M9 और AK-47 के भी थे, मगर हमने इससे भी संतोष नहीं माना। ये राइफलों को एक विशिष्ट विमान के द्वारा कल रात को 12 बजे चंडीगढ़ पहुंचा गया और पूरी रात फायरिंग कर इसके भी खाली खोखे जनरेट किए गए, 2 खोखों का मिलान किया गया, राइफल की नाली और निकले हुए खोखों का भी मिलान हो गया। तब ये तय हो गया कि इन्हीं 3 राइफलों से हमारे निर्दोष नागरिक मारे गए।
The hunt for the remaining 2 attackers continues.